Welcome to The Critique. Today we're looking at a video essay script from Soul, The Psychology of People Who Like to Be Alone. It's a deep dive into the biology of isolation and offers a way back.
This one feels personal, like it was written in the middle of the night. It's got a very heavy, visceral quality to it.
It really does, and that actually brings us right to the first point. The script leans almost entirely on this relentless second-person you address, and while I think the goal is immersion, it risks just completely exhausting the audience.
That's it. It stops feeling like an essay and starts to feel like a psychological indictment. It's just so diagnostic.
Exactly. It keeps telling you what you feel. Things like the jaw clamped shut, or you feel heavier than before. Your life is a portable courtroom, a stagnant pond, a bunker.
I mean, by the time we get to metabolic expense and social threat encoding, as a listener, I might just feel accused.
Or overwhelmed. If you're already feeling anxious, it could feel more like an attack than an observation, you know?
Right. Your defenses go up.
So the idea here isn't to lose that power, but to modulate it. The suggestion would be to dilute the intensity by sometimes bringing in a third-party avatar or even just shifting to we.
That makes a lot of sense. It turns it from an interrogation into a shared experience.
Take the part about the facade. Right now it says, you are acting the role of yourself. You are a master architect of a facade. That's a very direct finger point.
It is. But what if it were framed differently? Like, consider the experience of someone operating under this strain. Suddenly, it's a case study.
It allows the listener to see themselves in the description without feeling like they're on trial.
Or even just using we. The part about the customer service octave shift is a perfect example.
Oh yeah, the high-pitched voice to sound harmless. The script says your pitch instinctively shifts up. It's basically accusing the listener of being submissive.
But we've all done that. It's universal. If it's reframed as, we've all felt our voices shift, it becomes a human quirk, not a personal pathology.
And what about that line, you have become a stranger to your own vitality? That's a heavy thing to hear in the first few minutes.
It's crushing. It's brilliant writing, but is it too aggressive that early? Maybe in those darker parts about decay and emptiness, soften the you to one.
One becomes a stranger to their own vitality.
Yeah, it gives the listener enough space to let the truth land without the sting. They can choose to identify with it rather than having it forced onto them.
Okay, that brings up the next big point, which is kind of related. The material tends to conflate a simple preference for solitude with a pathological social anxiety. It risks alienating healthy introverts.
This is such a critical distinction. The script paints this binary where solitude equals decay and peace is only active regulation.
Right. It makes this assumption that all withdrawal is a freeze response masked by politeness.
Which works if you're talking to someone deep in a crisis, I guess. But for a lot of people, that's just not true. You risk losing anyone who's sitting there thinking, hang on, I'm not scared. I like being quiet.
So the goal isn't to weaken the argument, but to add a layer of nuance. The suggestion is to draw a clearer line early on between what we could call restorative solitude and defensive isolation.
You could do that with a kind of yes and beat, couldn't you?
Exactly. Acknowledge that feeling of relief when the lock clicks shut. That's real, and it's healthy. And then you make the point. The problem starts when that temporary shelter becomes a permanent residence. That reframing is key. It's about motivation, right? Like with the cancellation dopamine spike.
Right. The script frames it purely as relief from a threat, a stay of execution. But isn't there a difference between being relieved because you're just tired, which is healthy, and being relieved because you're avoiding a perceived threat? That's the unhealthy part.
It's fatigue versus fear. The script could make that distinction clear.
And that big metaphor, eutrophication, the stagnant pond, it's a fantastic image.
It is.
But aren't some ponds just peaceful? To strengthen the point, maybe the script could acknowledge that. You know, some ponds are healthy, but this specific pond has become toxic from a lack of flow.
It separates the personality from the pathology. I like that. So let's talk about the structure, the pacing.
Yeah, this was a big one. It feels like we spend an awful lot of time in the dark.
The 4 coordinates of invasion. You've got the notification preview, the octave shift, the post-social autopsy.
They're all brilliant. I mean, the post-social autopsy at 2 a.m, incredibly relatable.
Totally. But they come one after another, and the solution, this manual override, feels so far away. The listener is just stuck in this sunless room of the psyche for a really long time.
And you have to wonder, by the time the solution finally arrives, Has the listener just checked out? It feels like we're just wallowing in the problem for, 75% of the script?
I see the intent, which is to be thorough, but we can make it stronger by tightening it up. The suggestion here is to condense those 4 coordinates, or maybe even interweave them with the solutions.
Like pairing them up?
Exactly. Take the notification preview window, that little digital flinch we all do.
Yeah, you could group that directly with its solution, the asynchronous buffer. So you present the pain point, you see the message but don't open it, and then immediately give the fix. Wait 15 minutes. Regain your agency. It turns a diagnosis into a mini tutorial right there. Problem meets solution. I like that.
And what about the post-social autopsy? The script already set up the portable courtroom metaphor earlier.
That's a good point. It's a bit repetitive. We get it. We're judging ourselves.
So that could be trimmed way down. Make it 2 short sentences instead of a whole paragraph. And suddenly we get to the actual protocol that much faster.
Same with the customer service octave shift. It's a brilliant insight, really, but it doesn't need a long explanation.
Just a quick sentence. We pitch our voices up to sound harmless. Done.
And that time you save is crucial for what comes next, because that final section, it's dense.
Which brings us to our final point, the actual advice. The signal decoupling protocol is packed with biological jargon and these multi-step instructions that are just really hard to remember in an audio format.
The whole mood shifts, doesn't it? We go from this really poetic, almost lyrical prose about sunless rooms, and then suddenly we're in a biology textbook.
Completely. For each of the 3 steps, you have the action, the mechanism, the immediate shift, long-term adaptation.
It's very schematic. And the language. Parasympathetic nervous system, dopaminergic cortisol loop.
Task-positive network.
I mean, if I'm in the middle of social anxiety, hearing about my cranial nerves is probably going to make me zone out. I don't need the anatomy lesson. I just need to know what to do.
So the rigor is admirable. But for this format, we need to improve the accessibility. The suggestion is to simplify the science and focus on a memorable somatic cue. Right, so for step 1, the somatic interrupt, instead of explaining all the eye muscles and nerves, just cut it. Get straight to the instruction. Make it punchy. Soften your gaze until you can see the walls and the floor. The listener needs to know what to do, not the whole biological backstory. And step 3, the spotlight inversion. It uses the term default mode network.
And it's a barrier. Why not just call it the self-referential mode, or even just the spotlight? Something that fits the metaphors from earlier. Turn off the spotlight is an instruction I can remember.
Disengage the default mode network is something you have to Google later.
Exactly. And the part about becoming an anthropologist, noticing the texture of a shirt, the cadence of a voice, that's a great idea.
It's a really good hook, but to make it stick, I think it needs a mnemonic or a simple mantra at the end. After explaining the whole idea, just say, remember, texture, tone, color. Texture, tone, color. That's actionable.
It's something you can actually grab onto in that moment of panic at a party. Right now, the protocol is impressive, but it feels like a user's manual you have to study beforehand. It needs to be a tool you can just pick up and use.
So, to wrap things up for Saul, this script it's visceral, it's empathetic, and it's clearly coming from a place of deep understanding.
Oh, absolutely. The raw observations in here are just world-class.
But to really maximize its impact, it needs to first modulate that intense you address. Second, draw a much clearer line between healthy solitude and toxic isolation.
And then structurally, it needs to improve the pacing by connecting the problems more directly to their solution. Don't leave the listener in the dark for so long.
And finally, just simplify the jargon in that final protocol. Make sure the cure is as accessible as the diagnosis is powerful. So we'd really invite you to refine that balance, and please send this back to us. We would love to see where it goes.
It's a fantastic piece of work. With just a few adjustments, it could be genuinely transformational for people.
That's it for this critique. Keep writing.